What's up YouTube, this is Felin, and today I have my very first deck profile for you guys, and I'm happy to bring you my Dinomist deck. This deck varies slightly from the deck that I use online in my Duel Diary series, but without further ado, let's go ahead and show you guys how this is built. Alright, so starting things off with the monsters, we play one copy of Dinomist Spinos. He's the newest Dinomist card that came out in Shining Victories. He's the most powerful of them all at 2500 attack, and he has the really good ability of tributing one other Dinomist monster you control to activate one of his two effects. Now this can be done multiple times per turn, which is what makes him a really great card for pushing for game or just massive damage. His first effect allows you to attack your opponent directly, and his second effect allows you to make a second attack during each battle phase this turn. So as I said, he's really good at pushing for massive damage, especially for game if you have limber removal, or even the field spell, and he's just really good for that reason. But because you do have to tribute another Dinomist card, I only run him at 1 for that reason. Next up, we play 2 copies of Dinomist Rex, but before I talk about him, I'd like to talk about the Dinomist scales. As you can see, Spinos is a 3, Rex is a 6. For all 3 scales, whenever they're in the pendulum zone, if another Dinomist card or cards you control would be destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can destroy the scale instead. That's for the 3 scale. For the 6 scale, once while this card is in your pendulum zone, you can negate the activation of a card effect that targets another Dinomist card you control and then destroy the scale. So that's their scales. They really work well at protecting your Dinomist cards and keeping your board presence. And now for Dinomist Rex, like I said, he's a 2 of because he hosts a really great monster effect of at the end of the damage step, you contribute one other Dinomist card you control to make a second attack on an opponent's monster and inflict piercing battle damage, or you can shuffle one card from your opponent's hand at random or on their side of the field back to their deck, and he gains 100 attack. Now that second effect of shuffling back is non-targeting, and it's also a great way to get rid of Dark Destroyers, Domains, all sorts of problematic cards that you have to deal with, and that's why I run him at 2 in the deck, because he's really good and he's also a pretty good beat stick. Next up we have Dinomist Ceratops, which while you control only Dinomist monsters, you're able to special summon him from your hand. And he works really well with this next one, which is also at 3, Dinomist Brachion. Let me go ahead and move that. Dinomist Brachion, who, while your opponent controls the monster with the highest attack, you're able to special summon him from your hand. Now they work really well together for doing rank 5 plays. They have opposite scales, so again, the synergy is well between them, so you can special out your level 4s and your level 5s. Both of these are definitely a 3 of in my opinion, and they're really good. Next we have one of your searchers of the deck, Dinomist Terran. He's definitely a 3-up for this deck because you do need that searching power. When he does destroy an opponent's monster by battle, that's when you get your search off and you're able to search out one Dinomist card. It's important to note the word card because you are able to search out both your traps and your spells, not just your monsters. And he's also pretty good with an attack of 1800 and he's level 4. Next up for our last Dinomist monster, but he is definitely not the least, Dinomist Plesiosaurus. We play 3 of him because his effect is just amazing in this deck. All monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack and defense for each Dinomist card you control. So for every Dinomist card you control, including your spells, your traps, and your scales, your opponent will lose 100 attack and defense for each. Plus, his effect does stack. So the more Plesiosaurus you have on the field, the more points your opponent loses. That's why I play him at 3, and he just helps get Terran's effect off. He helps just piercing damage with Rex, beating over anything really. Now for the non-Dinomist monsters, we play one Luster Pendulum, the Draco Slayer. He's mostly here for your Draco Slayer plays. You're able to use his low scale along with your other Dinomist high scales to bring out your Pendulum monsters, and he's also a target for Ignister. And 1950 is not bad for an attack. Then we do play his opposite scale of Luster Pendulum, the Draco Slayer. Mostly you use him for the fusion summon or the synchro summons of the Draco Slayer cards, but you can also use his scale effect in combination with Dinomist Charge, which I'll talk about in a little bit, to make for some interesting looping plays and recycling. Then for our tuners, we play one Gen X allied Birdman. He's mostly here to play along with your Dinomist Brachion because you are able to special summon Birdman by bouncing back one card you control, one monster you control, mostly Brachion, because then you're able to special summon Brachion back if your opponent controls the strongest monster, and if you only control Birdman, your opponent will most likely have the strongest monster since Birdman is only 1400. And he's really here for the synchro summon of Ignister. Then our last tuner is Despot 1. What can I say about this card? This card is really great in this deck. Your deck is purely machine based except a few dragons, which are the Draco Slayers, but anytime you special summon 2 or more to the field, you're able to special summon this guy from your graveyard. So pendulum based deck, machines, you get where I'm going with this. And then also, his first effect is he gains 500 attack and defense for each machine type monster you control. So he can get pretty big and you can just use him as a beat stick itself. You don't always have to go into a synchro play, but that is mostly what he is here for. Then our last 2 cards are just to help thin the deck a bit, get some advantage, and that's Maxi. This format every format is basically special summoning, so this helps slow your opponent down, gets you more cards. It's a really good card, definitely run it. Now for the spells, we play 2 Dynamic Power Loads. This card gives all your Dinomist monsters an extra 300 attack and defense, as well as it gives all your Dinomist monsters an Armades-like ability, where when they attack, your opponent can't activate cards or effects during the damage step. Then we also play 1 Terraforming to search out your field spell, as well as to thin your deck should you already have a copy in your hand or on board. Next up, we play 3 Dinomist Charge. This card is probably the best spell in the deck. When it's activated, you're able to add 1 Dinomist monster from your deck to your hand. And then, whenever one of your Dinomist cards would be destroyed or is destroyed and added to the extra deck, you're able to add 1 of those cards back to your hand. Now this effect is mandatory, so having multiple copies will only allow you to get back more cards during that single destruction. And then of course you can only activate 1 per turn. But still, it's a really great card and definitely vital to keeping this deck's consistency as well as keeping your advantage. Next up, we play 2 MSTs because this deck dies to back row. A Solemn Warning or Solemn Strike at the right time can really basically end the game for you. So this is really good at getting rid of them. And then of course 1 Dark Hole to destroy your opponent's cards. You're able to replace this with Raigeki if you have one. It's just really good. Board wipes, helps OTK. Next up for our traps, we play 3 Dinomist Rush. This card is really good at saving you for an extra turn. I can't tell you how many times this card has actually saved me in a duel. When activated, you're able to special summon 1 Dinomist monster from your deck to the field, and it is unaffected by card effects. But it is destroyed at the end of the damage step, but if you have Dinomist Charge on board, you're able to recover it and bring it back to your hand. So you can always get a scale or whatever you need. Then we play a few Floodgates. Our first one is Rivalry of the Warlords. You do play mostly a machine-based deck, so this card doesn't affect you that much. It affects your opponent more, especially if they're playing a deck that has multiple monster types in it. We also play one Goes In match, similar card, just for attributes instead. Again, you are playing mostly water. It's unlikely your opponent's playing a single attribute, especially with the way the meta is right now. These cards slow down your opponent's decks, allowing you to gain more advantage, gain a stronger board presence. Next up, we play one Vanity's Emptiness as our last floodgate. Vanity's Emptiness in a pendulum-based deck is really hard to get rid of. All your monsters go to the extra deck instead of the graveyard, so this card's gonna stick around for a while. Your opponent's not gonna be able to special summon. You might not be able to special summon, but with this deck you're able to normal summon a lot of powerful cards, especially with Plesiosaur on board. You're able to just swing over all your opponent's monsters since they will be weaker. Then we play one Bottomless Trap Hole. You can only play it at one. It's really good at stopping your opponent's big summons. You banish the card when it gets destroyed. Then we play two Grand Horn of Heavens. This stops your opponent's pendulum summons, synchros, Xyz, regular special summons. It's really good. It also ends their main phase right there at the summon. They do draw one card, but ending that main phase and going straight into the next phase is definitely worth giving your opponent a card. Then for our last trap, we play, of course, one Solemn Warning. Basically, it's the nope of the deck. Whenever your opponent tries to special summon, you just pay 2,000 life points and tell them no. Now for our extra deck, we have one Armades, Keeper of the Boundaries. When you have your field spell up, all your Dinos become Armades pretty much, so having the real thing isn't a bad idea. You're able to push for extra damage or even game while you have them. That's why I definitely play it. Next up, we have a Stardust Charge Warrior. When he's synchro summoned, you're able to draw one card. That really does help with this deck since it is a little bit slow. As well as when he attacks, you're able to attack every special summon monster your opponent controls once each. This really helps clear the board for your OTKs. Next up, we have one Metaphys Horus. When synchro summoned based on the non-tuner you use, you are able to get two of his effects off, especially in this deck, because you are using pendulum effect monsters. So the two effects you're gonna get off are you can target one face-up card your opponent controls, negate its effects, as well as your opponent gives you one monster, their choice, and gives control of it to you, and it's not able to attack this turn, but that's okay because you can use it as a tribute for your level 5s, or also an Xyz play, or even a synchro play. Next up, we have for our last synchro, Ignister Prominence, the Blasting Draco Slayer. This guy, what can I say? He's great at removing cards from the field. You destroy one of your pendulums, and you're able to spin back one card your opponent controls, either from their hand, on their field, whatever you feel like it. This gets rid of your opponent's Dark Destroyers, gets rid of a lot of your Monarch problems, because this deck does have an issue with Monarchs. As well as you're able to go ahead and special summon out one Draco Slayer from your deck if you do have that copy available. Next up for our Xyz, we start off with one Gaga Cowboy. Cowboy for game, anyone? That 800 burn really can help you push for game. His first effect is also pretty decent, but you rarely ever use that. Next up we have one Abyss Dweller. Abyss Dweller is really wonderful in this deck. Your deck is mostly water attribute, so you do get that 500 attack boost. And with that boost, along with all the other boosts in this deck, your Dinos can really become powerful and beat over almost all your opponent's cards. As well as his second effect is probably one of the best effects in this extra deck. You are able to negate your opponent's graveyard effects at the cost of one Xyz material. This really does shut down your opponent's PK Fire decks, your Phantom Knights, your Burning Abyss, all of that. Even your Monarchs from time to time. Then we have one Castel. His ability to send cards back to your opponent's hand, as well as activate a Book of Moon-like ability at one material, is just really good. It just helps out and clearing your opponent's board. Then of course we play 1-101. He's really good for simply taking your opponent's special summon monster, equipping it to him as an Xyz material, or even just sitting on him at 2 materials and surviving 3 attacks. Then of course it's a rank 5 machine deck, so it's not complete without Cyber Dragon Infinity. Cyber Dragon Nova and Infinity, but I'll talk about Infinity afterwards. Cyber Dragon Nova is here mostly for the Infinity plays, and if your opponent's foolish enough to destroy him by a card effect, you do have a special surprise waiting for them. Next up, because it is rank 5, so we play Volcasaurus. Destroy your opponent's monster, burn them for damage equal to its attack, and then if they do have another monster, you are able to attack that other monster as well. You just can't attack directly with him. Then we do play 1 copy of Tiras. He's unaffected by your opponent, or he can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects as long as he has Xyz material, as well as when after he battles, you are able to destroy 1 card your opponent controls. This helps get rid of those pesky domains, those other pesky cards that are always stick on the field and prevent you from going off. Next, of course, as I mentioned, Cyber Dragon Infinity, probably my favorite card of this deck. I absolutely love Cyber Dragons. Cyber Dragon Infinity is probably the best Cyber Dragon out there. You are able to target any card your opponent controls that's in attack mode, equip it to him as an Xyz material, and then if your opponent has a card effect that you don't like, you can just go ahead and negate its activation. Plus, he also gains an extra 200 attack for each material. Next up, we play Gaia Dragon Thunder Charger, because Volcasaurus effect does prevent him from attacking directly, so if you destroy your opponent's only monster, you can overlay into Gaia Dragon and go ahead and do an extra attack, deal some more damage. Then for our fusions we have, I was about to play him in defense mode, because you always do, Dinosaur Powered Mighty Draco Slayer. This guy's here to protect your pendulum monsters from being destroyed by battle or card effect, as well as to protect your pendulum scales. And as I mentioned before, if your opponent is foolish enough to destroy your Cyber Dragon Nova, you do play a little surprise of Cyber End Dragon. This guy is a very nasty surprise at 4,000 attack, and with piercing damage, your opponent's going to regret that decision every day. That's it for today, YouTube. Hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile. If you have any suggestions on how to make this deck better, please leave it down in the comments below. If you would like to see me actually use this deck in one of my future Duel Diary videos, please hit the like button and let's try to get 25. If that happens, I'll definitely go ahead and do that. Other than that, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Later, YouTube.